Good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon, we have Mr. Keith Cox, and he'll be joining us to speak on behalf of what it's like to be an accountant, what his studies have gone through, what degrees he's acquired, any type of training that he's needed to become an accountant, as well as some highs and lows for his day. We'll also hear how COVID-19 has impacted his daily work routine and any tools or equipment that's needed to be an accountant on his daily routine. Thank you so much for joining us, Keith. We appreciate it.
Um, I work for Goldman Hunt and Knox LLP, which is a public accounting firm here in town. Primarily, the work I do is around financial statement auditing. So, what that it usually involves is that I will go into our clients, which usually include small governmental entities, small businesses, or small nonprofits, and we will look at their financial records and help get them ready so that when they present those financial records to people who are interested in seeing them, such as like banks, potential investors, things of that nature, that the financial records that they have accurately reflect the actual situation that's going on in that business. Our firm also does some tax preparation work for both individuals and small companies. So basically getting ready for tax day, which has been pushed back a little bit this year in light of the COVID situation, but is still something we work on with a regular basis. So kind of the first thing I'd like to talk about a little bit, talking a little bit about training and what's involved as far as education and things of that nature. If accounting is something that might be of interest to you as far as a career profession, the truth of the matter is there's really quite a wide variety as far as how much, depending on what kind of work you want to do. If you're just interested in kind of more of a transactional bookkeeping type work, some of that can be achieved with something as much as an associate's degree and expertise with specific bookkeeping software such as QuickBooks, Quicken, as well as maybe some more complicated systems that are out there. That would be kind of the minimum amount of education if you wanted to get into some form of accounting, some form of bookkeeping. Though most people, if you're looking to doing kind of a more complicated level of accounting, that would probably require at least a bachelor's degree from universities out there. So a lot of people will go through, complete a bachelor's degree, and then go right into the workplace from there with a lot of entry-level accounting jobs. This can be done at public accounting, which is more like what our firm is, so focusing on audits and tax preparations, or they may also go into what is typically referred to in industry as industry accounting. So that's where you would work for a specific company and help manage their records. So that's all a possibility once you've completed a bachelor's degree, going that route. If you want to kind of elevate your opportunities for more specialized areas or to kind of help climb the ladder, so to speak, within that, then the next step is probably working towards a master's degree and some form of certification. Probably the most well-known certification within accounting is the Certified Public Accountant, a CPA, which is something I've managed to do. To be able to sit for the exam, before you can even take the exam for the certification, you would have to have 150 hours from an accredited university, and of those, 30 hours have to be related to accounting. 21 have to be related to business in general, and then you have to have 3 hours, which is usually one course in ethics. So once you have all this, then you're able to start sitting for the exam. And most people, depending on their college experience, this usually requires you to basically have a bachelor's degree and be on pretty much have the majority, a good portion of a master's degree before you can start doing this and start sitting for that exam. So you do have some people that will go just get the hours that they need to start sitting for this exam and then call it quits at that. And then a lot of people will actually finish the master's program entirely before they start sitting for the exam, which is the route that I took. Then once you start sitting for that exam, it's a 4-part exam that you would have to take and pass all the sections within a specified period of time before you have that certification. What that opens up for you is, it's especially important if you're in public accounting, because to have ownership in a public accounting firm, to really grow in those ranks, a certified public accounting certification is necessary for you to sign off on a lot of the documents that a public accounting firm would produce. It's also very valued in companies that are, especially companies that are publicly traded, because they have that also requirement of having that CPA sign off. So it's always, and then even if it's not necessarily required in the industry you're in, it always looks good. It's always one of those things that kind of shows that you did that extra work to kind of achieve that higher level of skill. So it's always something that's marketable, and it's really kind of a good goal to shoot for. However, certified public accountant is not the only certification out there in the world of accounting. Depending on if you want to get into different specialized industries. You can get certifications that are specifically related to managerial accounting, which is accounting that's more focused on evaluating the business activities within an organization, so you can help that organization function more effectively. Basically, rather than your target audience being necessarily investors, you're trying to figure out, how can we better operate as a business? How can we operate more efficiently? So there's certifications around that specific school of accounting. There's certifications around internal audit. So basically the organizations within a company, helping that company get ready for the outside auditors to come in. This is usually more for larger companies that you would see in bigger cities, big organizations, and again, helping the company run smoother. You also have certifications related to fraud examination. So these are more, a fraud examiner would be someone who is called in if a company or someone believes that they have someone that's maybe stealing from them or misrepresenting things within the organization, that they need to kind of track down, figure out what's going on, and address the issue. A fraud examiner can be hired to come in and figure out what happened and make sure that the appropriate evidence has been collected to be able to effectively do what needs to be done in the prosecution process if it comes to that, or possibly even in the defense process. And then finally, you also see accountants in IT fields. There's a lot of opportunity there as well, and there's certifications specifically or IT focus, helping to act as a marriage between the complicated technology systems that we have today and the world of accounting, basically helping to find out, how do we get the financial information through the system so that we can access it effectively, that we can read all this data, we process all this information that we have, and also to make sure that it's safe from any kind of outside intruders and things of that nature. So there's really a wide variety of different options you can go. And the amount of education that you have is really kind of dependent on that. I would say, I talked about master's degrees earlier. Your master's does not necessarily have to be in accounting. A lot of people will have masters in a related business field, such as finance, or mine's actually in information system management. So you can kind of use that, your master's degree, to kind of tailor you to a little bit more of a specific discipline within what kind of accounting you want to do, what kind of companies do you want to work for, and kind of using that master's degree to kind of help direct that a little bit more. So another point is going down to, we've talked a lot about accounting. We're talking about, what you do on your education basis. What do you do on a day-to-day basis in your job? Speaking specifically to what I do, again, financial statement audits for small businesses, nonprofit organizations, and governments. What my typical process is that we will usually go out to the client that hired us. So let's say we have a city that needs to have an audit done for the year. What we'll do is we will go out to that city, and then we will collect financial information from them. And we'll basically review that against their financial records and make sure that their records are accurate and that they're put together in such a way that accurately reflects the company. So usually what this involves, we'll go out to that client, maybe spend anywhere from a day to a week with them, digging through all their financial records, comparing that against their master records. And then once we're done, we'll leave the client's site. We'll have all our test work papers of all the testing work that we did out there that we'll review, make sure everything's in order. And then using that information will help the client put together their actual financial statements that they'll present to the client. That all goes through quite a number of review processes. We'll work through it and then pass that information on to other members within our organization who will review it, give us feedback, we'll make those adjustments. And finally, the end product is we will produce a financial statement report that will go to the client. The client will look at it, make sure it reflects everything that from their understanding, and that will become their financial statements for that period of time that we're looking at. We'll usually also show up, especially for a city or something, to their board meeting and kind of give a presentation and overall summary through that whole process. And then once that's done, we'll move on to the next client. Typically, most of our clients will have an audit each year. So we kind of get into a cycle where we see kind of the same clients on a yearly basis. We get to get involved with what they're doing in their business to make sure we understand what's going on there and get a good understanding of their business to be able to help them prepare their financial statements. For our tax practice, our tax practice isn't something I work in as much, but I do have some involvement. What tax preparation usually looks like on a yearly basis is once we start getting around to the major tax deadlines, the one we're all probably familiar with is April 15th for individual tax returns. What we'll do is we receive information from our tax clients. They'll basically provide us with all their financial records related to their income for the year. If they have like a small business or a farm, they'll provide us their financial records from that. And then we'll sit down, organize that, and then prepare their tax returns based on that information, doing our best to try to effectively communicate what needs to be communicated to the IRS, and also providing some advice to them to help them maximize the amount of deduction that they can get based on what their financial situation is and what they're doing to make sure that they're essentially paying the correct amount in their taxes, and they're not paying any more than they need to, but also that they're paying what they need to. So we'll help prepare their tax returns for individuals. We can also do the same thing for companies. They have to file tax returns, a little bit different schedule on some of that, but we'll help them prepare their financial statements for that and prepare their tax returns so that they can report and pay what they need to as far as that's concerned on their taxes. And then there's also some just kind of general reporting type things that happen within the tax year, where different companies, depending on the nature of the organization, for example, nonprofits, they don't pay taxes, but they still have to fill out what's called an information return that basically communicates kind of what's been going on for them for the year and making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing as a nonprofit organization and not getting into things that would be taxable as a for-profit information. So we sometimes help small organizations with that in the preparation of these information returns and helping them get that information out. As far as what do I enjoy as far as about my job? What are kind of the highlights of kind of the work? I think one thing, especially being in public accounting, you're getting to see a wide variety of organizations and how they work. Again, I get to work with several different cities. I get to work with some municipal water districts, groundwater conservation districts, small nonprofits that range from social organizations to churches, as well as some small companies that deal in things such as product wholesale, grain management, a few things like that. So that really gives me kind of an opportunity to really kind of see the inner workings of a lot of different entities, to be able to see, you know, how different businesses do things. What are kind of the challenges these individual businesses face. So it kind of helps. It's very nice to sometimes get that wide perspective, to be able to see what all these different organizations do. And it also adds a little bit of variety to the day-to-day work, in that the treatment and the things that you do, while there's some basic concepts are the same, in a lot of ways, the things that you do for a grain organization, or the things you have to keep in mind for like a grain or elevator company, is quite different than what you would have to consider for a small water district. So that can be one of the more enjoyable things, being able to see different things. Also, just sometimes, especially given that we work with smaller entities, we kind of get the opportunity to kind of be a little bit of a subject matter expert in accounting. So there's opportunities also for a little bit of teaching and sharing information with our clients, so that they're able to better do the things that they need to do to be able to run more efficiently as an organization, as well as making sure that they're reporting their information accurately to their constituents, which is also, again, gives you kind of an opportunity to be able to teach and be able to help people with that. So have enjoyed that quite a bit as working with this organization. As far as academic knowledge that you would need to going into this, what are the type of things, you know, we've already talked about the education, but, you know, you sometimes find, you know, what are our kind of proficiencies as far as like, is it math heavy? Is it reading heavy? What in that sort of thing? Probably the comment I always get when you tell someone that you're an accountant is, well, you must be good at math. And there is quite a bit of math in accounting. You are working with numbers on a daily basis, but the type of math you're doing is really pretty straightforward stuff. You're not getting into the more complicated theoretical stuff. I would argue accounting has far simpler math involved with it than, say, something like engineering or like physics or something like that, some of the advanced sciences. You know, you need to be competent with math. You need to be comfortable with math because, again, you're going to be crunching numbers, as we say, on a daily basis. But again, really high theoretical math is not something we ever really get into. But also reading comprehension especially is very important also in our work. A big part of what accounting is understanding the rules that are set forth by our governing bodies and being able to apply those in a way that's appropriate. So we find a lot of times that we have to do research into the different guidelines that we have, and we have to be comfortable with reading the information that we have in there and being able to process it and interpret it in a way that makes sense for our clients and the people we work for. Because a lot of times the guidance on how you're supposed to treat a specific piece of financial data on the financial statements, the guidance may be very general as far as, you know, this is the general idea we want you to accomplish with it. And then it's up to us as the accountants, as the auditors, to be able to take that information and effectively interpret it so that the spirit of what they're trying to do is accomplished, but it also works within the context of the specific entity that we're working in. So there's a lot of numbers involved. There's also a lot of reading comprehension involved. Surprisingly, there's actually quite a bit of writing too. It's more business writing. It's not creative writing. We're not, we don't want to be overly flowery with our memos and things, but at the same time, we have to be able to concisely and effectively communicate the ideas that we have. We have to be able to communicate this in emails with different organizations, be able to communicate that in the financial statements. Most financial statements have a significant narrative portion that we assist in writing to make sure that it accurately describes the financial situation. And we also have to be able to communicate and sometimes do a little bit of public speaking if we're presenting those financial statements to different organizations, boards, and things of that nature. As far as sciences, that's probably not something we necessarily delve into as much. Maybe a little bit of computer science with any industry you're in today. Having some competencies around a computer is always something that's valued, and people will love you if you can troubleshoot things on a computer even more so. But that being said, having the basic foundations and scientific ideas can be useful in the sense that, especially if you're doing something like audit, where you're working with different organizations, sometimes we have to understand the different things that they do, and at least to the point that we are able to effectively communicate the financial aspect of that. For example, dealing with water, wastewater treatment type organizations. Sometimes, understanding what the component parts, what they have to do for them to produce clean water is something that it's useful for us to be able to get a baseline understanding of, so that we can make sure that the financial aspect of that is accurately reflected. And again, a basis in sciences can help with that understanding. In general, I would say academic knowledge, you're kind of wanting for something like accounting or really business in general, you're really kind of, for the things that they teach you in high school, primary school, and things of that nature, you really kind of want to be a little bit of a jack of all trades, be able to have comfort in everything. It's not absolutely necessary that you be super at math or, super creative on a literary standpoint, but you want to be able to have a good grasp of all these things, because you're going to be using them throughout your career in a variety of different ways. And having that good, strong foundation and everything, and a good rounded foundation, helps you when you go off to college, when you specifically start studying business and accounting and the rules and processes that go within that. To be able to learn that, you need that foundation to be able to learn the details of business and get you where you need to in your the degrees that you're seeking, as well as professionally. As far as different equipment that we use, different technologies, everything is very much computer-based nowadays. Probably one of the biggest tools that I use on an everyday basis is Microsoft Excel. And it's so that's probably the backbone tool that we use. We have other software systems that we work with that help organize the data that we work with and organize the test work that we do. But most of that is also being run with Excel and Microsoft Word documents. We also have to have experience, and with working with different accounting systems, specific software that's designed for accounting. Most of our organizations, being that they're fairly small, operate in QuickBooks. So having competency with that, being able to sit down at a set of QuickBooks and not only make transactions, but also to dig into the information to be able to pull stuff out becomes very important and is an important skill for us to have. If you work with larger companies, then you start getting into more and more complex computer systems specifically designed for accounting software. One that in a previous job I worked with was called SAP, and it's entirely built around accounting and business and has its own set of transactions and things that you have to know how to work with to be able to be effective with it. So that will depend on who you're working with in your job, but definitely you're going to be working with different computer systems and different programs. In light of the COVID situation, this having the access to the computer systems has been a major boon in this time, because we're now, most of us in my firm are working out of our houses as much as we're able to. And this we're basically doing through a remoting in system. So we're able to use our home computers to access our computers there at the office and be able to work from our houses safely. We're also able to communicate with some of our clients for them to send us, scan and email the documentation that we need. So we're able to work from home and keep things moving while we're kind of in this unique time period. So that's one good thing. We're not necessarily, we're able to kind of stay home and be in kind of a more secure environment. That being said, if we do need to go out and meet with clients, it is something we can still do, but we're exercising caution, just like kind of in everyone else with face masks and stuff of that nature. So I think that covers some of the main talking points. Kind of wanted to go over what questions do y'all have about accounting, about the industry, that sort of thing.
All right, so thank you, Keith, for that background. And for our participants, if you have questions, if you'll put them over in the chat box. And I have one to begin with. What would you say would be some of the most important interpersonal skills that you use in your job?
Well, I think one of the things, communication is key. I think there might be some assumption that, accountants are just kind of, they're hiding behind a desk all day, running the adding machine in a computer, but we actually have a tremendous amount of interaction with both our peers and our clients. We have to be able to communicate with them effectively to understand what they're doing in their business, what things are going on in their business, the different procedures that they have. As auditors, we're oftentimes requesting documentation from our clients, and we have to be able to effectively communicate what we need so that they can provide us with what we need to be able to move forward with the work that we're doing. So I think with that, the ability to communicate is essential. Ability to listen, to be able to, when someone explains something to us, that we're able to hear that we're not making assumptions about what we hear, but we're able to hear it effectively and evaluate that and translate that into the information that we need to do what we're doing.
What advice would you give high school students as far as classes to take, extracurricular activities to be involved in that might help them prepare for a job in accounting?
One thing I would say is if you're interested in accounting, if your high school has a bookkeeping course or something of that nature, I would definitely consider looking into that. I was fortunate enough that was something that my high school had when I was there, and it really did a good job of kind of explaining kind of the very baseline mechanics of accounting. This will serve two purposes. One, it will kind of give you a little bit better idea as to if this might be something you might want to pursue long term. It will also kind of give you a leg up when you get into the college world and you're first sitting down for an accounting 101 class. You're going to know what a debit is. You're going to know what a credit is and how that relationship between those two things are. So that would be one thing I would definitely recommend. As far as extracurricular activities, really anything, especially things that involve teamwork, is always positive. Colleges are always looking for that, to see that there's more to you than just GPA, that you have other interests, that you have other things that you're engaged with. And that is something that also translates outside of the college world into the professional world as well. Again, doing things that are team-based shows that ability that you can work with groups of people, helps you develop that teamwork. For something specific, things like public speaking can be very effective as far as helping define, sharpen those communication tools and helping with things like presentations and things of that nature.
We have a question that someone wanted to know. about availability of internships or co-op programs that are offered through universities or through accounting firms. Do you know if any of those are available or even required for some colleges?
I think a lot of that's going to depend on the school that you're at, though I think really in a lot of cases those are a common part of a lot of different systems. So I myself went to Texas A&M, and the program I did there is actually a 5-year bachelor master's program. So it was specifically designed with accounting in mind, getting you out, getting you the hours you needed to be able to sit for the CPA exam. And a major part of that program was doing an internship, which we did during one of our summer semesters, and was very much, with A&M, they were very much focused on what's called the Big Four accounting firms. So these are the biggest accounting firms in the country. So they're the big boys, usually have firms and offices in all the major cities. So I did an internship over the summer with Deloitte in Houston. Now, this isn't unique to A&M. Many of the other big schools have very similar programs, including this 5-year track. I know for a fact UT also has a very comparable program. In fact, I think UT and A&M actually communicate quite a bit as far as bouncing ideas off of each other, those two business departments. But I think there are similar programs with University of Houston, with Texas Tech, and I think you would probably find a lot of things, you know, most schools that have a strong business school are going to have something like this. As far as firms hiring, I know I suspect there are some firms here in Victoria that probably do hire and do intern type work. Our firm specifically has had some of our people, our new staff people, they hadn't quite graduated yet from UHV, but they were in the latter part of their education and they were able to come on as full-time staff while they were finishing their degree at night. So I think there's definitely some opportunities. I know here in Victoria, I think sometimes we do find, especially in public accounting firms, that we are looking for people who are interested in getting out and getting involved with accounting and wanting to stay local. I would say that there's a good bit of options in that area, but something to explore definitely when you're looking at the colleges you're wanting to go to, looking at their business schools, talking to representatives and counselors in those business schools and about what specifically their program is. Do they have an internship program, and who do they typically, their students typically intern with?
Thank you. I have one other question. Is accounting a profession that can lend itself to employ people of different ability levels, or folks that might have some disabilities, physical or otherwise? Is accounting open to them?
I think there's a lot of potential for that. As far as being open, again, most of our work is we're usually at a desk. We're usually working with a computer on a daily basis. So if the challenges are more from a mobility standpoint, then again, we're usually in kind of one place and working with different computer systems to be able to do the work that we're doing. A lot of things will just kind of depend on the flexibility, but of the organization and who you're working with. But at the end of the day, I think especially with big firms and things like that, there's a lot of opportunities for inclusivity and things of that nature. So I think there definitely is a lot of opportunity there. Like I said, it's a matter of really the focus being on good communication skills and being able to process the information that you have. I think if you can show that you can do those things, a lot of companies will work with you to help you be integrated into the organization and be able to help as much as possible.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the folks that are on the webinar? well, I don't see any, but Keith, we really want to thank you for the information that you shared with us and your time today. So if anybody thinks of any questions later on, if you want to email Raquel Garza, she can connect up with Keith to get you some additional information. So again, Keith, we thank you, and we thank everybody who participated in this call, and stay well, and have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye now.
Bye. Thanks for having me.